What's going on, guys? Welcome back to today's video. I hope you guys had an amazing Thanksgiving, and we're just gonna hop right into it. Today we're gonna be removing the head off the 1J. We got a big package or a decent sized package from Drift Motion, which has most of the stuff to do the 1.5J. So that being said, let's go ahead and unwrap the 1J, and we'll start tearing it apart and take you guys along with me. This engine stand sucks at rolling, but actually no. Let's do it. There you go. So I don't know if you guys saw it, but I did break the cam gears loose with the impact. The reason why I did that now is because we still have the tension on the timing belt to hold everything in place. Now that these are loose, we can go ahead and undo the timing belt tensioner. That way the pulley can drop down. And that way we can take the timing belt off, take the cam gears off, remove the rear timing plate, something like that. Then we can start taking off the cam. So let's go ahead and zap all this front stuff off real quick, and then we can move on to removing the head. So real quick, I just want to let you guys know, I'm going to kind of walk you through how to take everything off, just because when I was looking it up on YouTube, I couldn't find very much videos like telling me exactly what to do. So I did in fact find a thing, I don't know, I'll show you, let's try something else. I did in fact find a forum that told me the torque sequences or removal sequence for all the cam bolts and the head bolts. That way we can make sure we do that correctly, not damage anything. But it always does help to have a video, so I'm going to kind of walk you guys through how to do everything. Now that we have our timing belt tensioner off, which was right here, just two 12mm bolts, the tensioner pulley backs off and gives slack to the timing belt. Then you can walk off the timing belt, get that off as you can see. Then you take your crank pulley bolt and the little retainer thing, and then you can take the crank pulley gear thing off. I don't really know the exact name, but all I know is this is for the crank pulley and the timing belt, and this right here is the little gear that sends the crank signal to the ECU or whatever. So to take this off though, as you can see, it should just slide off, but there's a retaining clip right here that if you look, when I pull this off, it hits that right there. So you want to make sure, don't forget to pull this out, that way this gear can just slide right off. If not, if you don't take this off and you force it, you could break the crank cam something sensor, whatever. You could break that, so make sure to take that off. It should be just a 5mm Allen, and this will just pull right off. Just zap that off, and the gear should come with it. And I need a, there you go. Now you'll see with that little retaining clip on, this will pull right on out. Boom, just like that. It should not be stuck, but if it is, they do make a little tool that bolts onto this, but it should just slide out just like that. So now that's off, we can take the cam gears off and the timing plate off. So I'm just gonna put this little retaining clip back in there just so I don't lose it. So once we'll put that back in, and then I'll walk you through how to take this stuff off. Okay, so if you guys did what I said in the beginning, which was break loose your cam gear bolts before you take off the timing belt, you should just be able to spin this out. Then you can just pull the cam gears right off, and they do have a little notch right there. That way you can always put them on straight if you ever reuse these. I think I'm gonna go with adjustable cam gears, but we'll see. So I'm just going to go ahead and label these exhaust side and intake side, just so I don't mix them up. I don't know if you can interchange these, they look the same, but to be on the safe side, you always want to put things back where they came from. So we're going to go ahead and label these intake and exhaust. Boom. Boom. Now we know which ones where they're at. So when we have to put it back on, we know we can put it back exactly where they came from. So now that that's off, we have access to our rear timing cover or whatever. So it looks like just to be a few, what are those, 10 mil bolts? Yeah, 10 mil bolts right here, right here, right here, right here. So it looks like 4 10 mil bolts, and we can remove this rear cover. Then we can get to removing the cams. Boom, just like that. So I just want to point out, a lot of people delete this little pipe, this little cooling pipe on the 2J GE block. I'm not sure about the other JZs. It's actually capped off here, but I do want to just keep it just because it's worked for me and I want to keep on using it. So I am going to retain this water pipe. I'm going to pull this fitting off of this block, pull the plug off of there, and put the fitting on there and this water pipe on there. So technically everything's off that I need to, or I just need to pull the cams off and then I can pull the head off, and I won't need to use any of this. But I am going to be retaining this water pipe and my water pump, because this is a new water pump. I only have like maybe 5,000 miles on it, and probably less than 1,000 to be honest. Put it on, did like 3 events or 3.5 events, and it blew up. So we did get a new oil pump because don't want to do that. You guys saw how the oil looked in here. Not using that, but we didn't have a problem with the cooling, so we're just going to go ahead and use this water pump. It's a 2J water pump, still nice and tight, no abnormal play. So we're going to pull this off later, probably in this video, I don't know. But right now we're just going to undo the cams and go ahead and pull the head off. If you look at this diagram, this is the front of the motor, this is the back. So this is how you want to undo the cams. And you want to do it by sequence, because if not, you can bend the cams and you could have a bad time. So based off of this, it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So looking at this, it should be one. Actually, let's pull this a little bit closer. That way we can see. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And as long as you take it off in that sequence, you should be okay. You take these completely off first, so these cam seal caps or whatever, take those completely off and then go with this. So also you want to remember, don't just zap them completely off, because then you'll still have an issue. You want to kind of where they're at, loosen them 90 degrees, and then go to the next one, 90 degrees, go to the next one, 90 degrees. So I'm just going to go ahead and time lapse that, and then we'll show you guys with us pulling it out. Now that you got your cams off, you want to put them aside. And I had some extra bubble wrap laying around at work, so I brought some home. So it's on a nice cushioned surface. It's not going to get dinged, dented, or scratched. We got the exhaust side there, intake side here. We got it labeled. Ideally, I would have labeled each cap number 1 through 6. Same here, 1 through 6. But they're too dirty. I couldn't get them cleaned up without using like a Scotch-Brite or something. So I just decided to put them in order here. I'll label them later. I'll probably just label them with tape individually. But now that we got our cams off to the side, ideally you would remove the, whatever these are. I forgot the name. Why can't I think of the name right now? Anyways, ideally you would remove that. And these I will label. I'm going to clean them off with some brake cleaner and then label them, just like I did with the 2J ones. I'll show you that later. But we're just going to go ahead and get the head removed first. We got our diagram here of the removal sequence. It's in the same orientation as here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Pretty much you go from corner to corner, work your way back and forth. So it's going to be, where's the first one? 1, 2, another corner, next corner, next corner, next corner, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. So let's go ahead and time lapse through that. We'll carefully remove the head, and we're gonna store it in this container. I got this container that should be big enough, should be deep enough. We're gonna wrap this in bubble wrap as well, just because we are reusing this head. So we want to be a little bit more careful with it. Unlike with the 2J head, it's kind of just set there. I am being careful with that just in case I want to do something with that in the future. But this one, I really have to take care of it. So let's go ahead and line that with bubble wrap real quick, and we'll get this removed. So it's the same thing as the cams for the head bolts. You just want to do it in the removal sequence, and you want to loosen it 90 degrees at a time. I noticed that the second pass of going through 90 degrees, that's when it all loosened up. So once you get to that point, you can just hit it with the power tools just to speed up the process a little bit. But you want to make sure every single one of the bolts are pretty much loose. That way you're not warping the head or damaging any surfaces. So now that it's all loose, we can zap them all off. Now that we got all the head bolts completely loose, based off of the instructions, it says take a flathead, lift and pry. But don't be stupid. Don't go looking to pry in the little mating surfaces. If you look here, there's a part of the block right here, and there's a part of the head right here that is not a mating surface, and it doesn't matter if, well, I wouldn't say it doesn't matter, but it can be touched a little bit. So that's what I'm going to use to pry, and as you can see, it's lifting the head up already. So now that that's broken free, I should be able to just lift it up and put it in our little container that we have over there. Point out one thing though really quickly. A lot of people are gonna, or I've had a few people come at me saying, I thought JZs were indestructible, blah 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 blah. But yes, I still believe JZs are pretty much indestructible. Everything has its breaking point. And one thing I want to say is, for the most part, as long as you maintain anything, doesn't matter what it is, if you do the proper maintenance that it requires, it should last you forever, or a long time. And I'm going to show you guys inside this JZ. I know you guys saw it before, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a closer look to see why I think this motor just gave. So, if you guys remember in a few videos ago, I showed you guys how dirty and gunky this head is. Like, this thing did not have much oil changes in its life before I owned it. And I just don't think it was very well taken care of. And when I was pulling the head bolts out, all this gunk, all this stuff was inside the head bolt, like inside of there, so I couldn't even get the tool in. I had to scrape all of it off with the flathead just so I can get the triple square bit in there. So yeah, I honestly don't think this motor was taken care of very well back in Japan, or whoever owned it before I did, and it just was its time. So that being said, enough getting sidetracked, let's go ahead and look at the head a little bit. Now that we got the head off, I really wanted to look at this head gasket, because if you guys watch Adam LZ, you guys would know when he did his 1.5J that he had to do this oil passage thing that didn't line up with the 1J head to the 2J block. So I was curious, because a lot of people said you have to, a lot of people said you don't. So I wanted to compare the head gasket. So this is the single layer steel head gasket for the 2J GE. And then this is the head gasket for the 1J, obviously, the MLS steel gasket. And I set it on top of each other so everything lines up. And I was looking at the hole, and sure enough, you can't really tell, but it lines up with that hole. And just to be sure, I pulled it out so I can see a little air gap. And boom, what do you know? The oil passage lines up perfectly, and we don't have to do any welding or machining to that head to make it work with that block. Only thing you have to notice though, the 2J or the 1J has it that it comes out more compared to the 2J. Just want to make sure you use the 2J head gasket, that way it seals properly on the block, because all this stuff is just extra stuff that you don't need. So make sure you use the 2J gasket, but obviously use the GTE Toyota gasket. That way it's multi-layer steel compared to this single layer stuff. Made a quick pit stop to O'Reilly's to reload up on our brake cleaner because this is our last can. It's just about empty. Also picked up a little magnet. This one's a big Johnny 16-pound magnet. That way we can pull. Oh. I don't know if that's supposed to happen, but it's supposed to pull our little caps off. All right, we got all the cam bucket things, whatever you want to call it, out, and we have it put into here. We got the intake side here labeled, as well as the exhaust side. And in this pocket here, we also have the cam caps. We also label them exhaust and intake, and we have them in the order just so we know which ones they go to. And as I was saying with the 2J stuff, when we did the 2J, I labeled every single one of them because they were clean enough to do so. But unfortunately, the 1J is a little bit more crusty, so we weren't able to do that. But at least we know exactly where they go and what side they go on. So now that we're pretty much done with the head, we're gonna send it off to the machine shop. RJ has a buddy. I'm not sure exactly what machine shop it is, but we're gonna go ahead and send this off with the new seals that I'm gonna show you in a bit. So we got everything off the 1J block, pretty much everything we need off anyways. So right now I'm just diving into the 1J block. Just gonna see, actually I know what's wrong with it. We all know what's wrong with it. Cylinder number 2 went bye-bye. But this is not for the video, so I just wanted to show you guys what I was doing. But we're gonna catch up back with you guys when we have the head back from the machine shop, when we get the new valve seals on there. So I'll show you, I don't know.